Can you really see the difference between an inexpensive watercolour set and a premium watercolour set? I painted the exact same floral container twice. Once with the inexpensive Paul Rubens Floral watercolours and once with my own premium artist watercolours, which I've collected over the years. They look almost identical, but are they? Let's take a closer look, and this video is brushstroke by brushstroke, so let's get on with it. We're just going to have a go at painting a couple of containers. Yeah, I think they'll be quite fun to have a go at painting. I'm just going to put a handle on here as well, just to make it a bit more interesting. In fact, let's have the handle facing like this. We'll do one on this side. We'll try and make them fairly identical. Okay, I know last week a few people said they couldn't see the pencil outline, and it's because I'm so used to doing a really light pencil outline, which is what you really want to do in real life, but for the sake of the camera I'm going to press a little bit harder just so that you can see, but don't do this on your paintings. And of course, trying to get each side to look identical is the hardest thing to do. I'm working on the paper that was sent to me by, who was it sent to me by? Paul Rubens, that was it. Paul Rubens sent it, very kindly sent it. So I'm just working on a bit of their paper, and I'm using these Masterstroke Craft and Decorative brushes. These are really very economical, they're a couple of pounds each. So, and they've got a nice snap to them. And when people say snap, it's just a little bit of firmness, which is quite nice. They're not too all over the place, which I think is quite good if you're a beginner. And the one on the left is going to be the good paints. And I say good paints, I mean the more expensive paints, the artist quality ones that I know a little bit more about, that you pay a lot more money for. And the one on the right, we're going to use the Paul Rubens set, which is a very economical set. The first thing we want to do is put the flowers in, because we're going to have a few just draping over the side. I'm going to put in some very loose tendrils that are just going to come down this pot like so, and I think we'll have some on this side. Now I say tendrils, I really mean leaves, because that's what they are. And we'll put in the flowers next. We'll do some yellow flowers, and this is the Daniel Smith lavender, so we'll put some of these in. So I suppose these could be like petunia style flowers perhaps. Orange in there, I think this is actually called red orange. And we'll have a few of those in as well. In fact, no we won't, we'll just have one of those, and then we're going to put in some bright red flowers. So I'm using a bit of the Scarlet Lake, alizarin crimson, a bit of that, and we'll do some nice dots of red in there, like so. Okay, so if you're liking this video so far, a quick like and subscribe really helps this channel grow. If you could share it, that would be great too. Drop a comment, I'd love to hear from you, and thank you. I think what we're going to do is paint in the metal of the container, and I'm going to use a grey, so I'm going to mix my own grey up. We'll add that in. So there's going to be a bit of a lip on here, so let's add that in too. And And I'm going to paint carefully-ish around these flowers and leaves, and then we're going to paint in the handle. Now the beauty with watercolours is you can make them do all the work for you. What I like to do is feed a bit more colour into some areas, and then by adding a bit more water in, you can, well, it helps create blooms, which adds nice textures to things like containers. What I'm doing now is just washing off my brush, giving it a bit of a dry, and then I'm just going to pull some of this down and over. And I'm also lifting little bits of area out with the brush, and I just wipe it on my hands really. Now while it's damp, we want to add in some rusty colour, and that would be like a burnt sienna. So I'm just gonna drop that into a few areas. And I'm also going to put in a bit of a line with the French ultramarine, just make it a little bit darker. Bit more shadow on this side, I think. Add a bit of detail to the bottom as well. And I'm going to make the shadow just come out. I think I'm going to just lift a little bit more colour. And then we're going to add a shadow, so I'm going to use basically the same mix, I think. I think that will do. Just going to see if I can lift out a couple of different specks. So you need to get it nice and wet, dry it off, and then it should just soak up. You just encourage maybe a couple of areas just to lighten them just a little bit. I think that's all we're going to do on the tin, just for now anyway. And then I'm going to add in the greenery, which hopefully is going to just bring it all together. We'll use, I've got the Green Apatite Genuine. I'm going to add French ultramarine, and that will make it nice and dark. And then what we'll do is we're just going to put in a few leaves. And I'm using number 6, so I'm not getting too finicky about anything. Of course there's going to be more shadow underneath here, and we'll just put a bit of shadow around some of these leaves as well. What we'll do as well is just add a little bit of dark, I think, to the centre of these flowers. So I'm going to use the Moon Glow. I'm just going to use my really small brush for this because we're only adding little specks to the centre. And we're just going to put in some little crosses, some little dabs. I think we will also add a bit of that Moon Glow into some of the green. I'm just going to add even more dark areas underneath here. And then I'm just going to add a bit of that shadow colour to the handle, because that handle is going through there. And then just under this rim, I think we'll add a little bit. And I'm adding just a little bit of detail under here. Okay, and there you have a very basic but fairly believable little tub of flowers, and that could work really well in a painting or with a little cluster of other ones. Right, now I'm going to move over to the Paul Rubens. So we'll do the same, exactly the same, but this time using the Paul Rubens. For this I'm using I'm going to use the olive green. I think that's actually nearest to what I was using. So we use that first of all. I'm going to probably use exactly the same composition. We'll put the flowers in next, so I'm going to use the lemon yellow, a tiny bit of this slightly darker, warmer yellow, and we'll just add. It's really hard creating the same type of flowers as before, so these aren't quite as translucent, but the yellow is very nice. It's like a green gold almost. I've actually got, there's a bit of another colour mixed in with it here, but we'll use that. It doesn't have to be exactly the same colour, and that is lovely, really nice. Okay, we'll try an orange flower, so I'm just going to use this permanent orange yellow, I think it's called. Put one of those in. And then we're going to add in some red flowers. So I'm going to use I think it's called Carmine Red, which is sort of in between a scarlet red, I would say, and a permanent alizarin crimson. So we're just dotting some sort of geranium shapes, I suppose. You can go in like that. I have noticed these paints seem to dry a lot quicker, but we'll just double check. So the next thing is we'll do the container, and I'm going to mix up the grey. I'm going to use something like a French ultramarine, which they have in this set, and then it needs some type of burnt umber, so I'm just going to use a mixture of those two to give us hopefully a nice grey colour. And then we'll drop that onto our container. It's a very nice grey actually, it's come out really well. Again, I'm going to try and add a little bit of a lip, just with the brush, and then we'll paint around as much as we can. Put in the handle. That grey is lovely. And then I'm just going to water it down a little bit, because we want it to granulate as much as possible. By adding water into it, it should create those blooms and interesting textures that you get on old things, because we don't want it to look flat. We will add a bit to this lip at the top. Sorry if you can hear that, it's my stomach rumbling. And I'm just going to lift out a little bit because we just need some lighter areas. So again, just with the brush, putting it in, and then I just run it through my fingers and they should be able to lift. Just give it a bit of a wiggle. A few areas. And then we'll add in like a burnt sienna, a brown colour, so one of the browns. I have found with this sort of burnt sienna colour, it's quite weak, so you do need to add quite a bit into it. and the paints don't stay as wet for so long, so you do have to work really quickly to get those bleeds and blends. And what I'm going to do as well is just make up a shadow colour. So the shadow colour really is the same as the container, but it's just a bit darker, just in a couple of areas. A little bit of detail along there. I'm just trying to get them to bleed a bit more. We just need to add some greenery behind here. I'm not sure what HSB, hold on, if I just turn that around. Let's have a look. Hooker's green, brilliant. We've got olive green, emerald green light, permanent green. So I think what I'm going to do is actually add the, I've already forgot, Hooker's green, brilliant. We're going to make it a bit darker, so we'll add some French ultramarine into that. And we're just going to dab in some colours into our container just for the leaves and the foliage. I'm going to drop in, yeah, a little bit of this indigo just into certain areas just while it's wet, because it's quite nice when it does that. It just gives it a bit of variation. And then yeah, we'll add a little bit down here just for some shadow on some of these leaves that are just falling down. And then we just need to add a bit of colour to the middle of these leaves just to give it a bit of interest. So again, I'm going to use something like a deep violet, which is a little bit like the moon glow, I guess. I'm just not used to these colours. Let's have a look. PV. Oh Sarah, what is it called? PV, permanent violet. Should have known that really, shouldn't I? Permanent violet. In fact, let's just use the same on here. We've got two almost identical containers using two different paint sets, so I'll let you decide. I mean, I did those really quickly. We'll do some terracotta ones, I think, as well. The bleed on the left hand side, I'm not sure if you can see this, is a lot better than the bleed on this side, I would say. I think the colours on this side are gorgeous, really nice. They do dry a lot quicker. You like to work wet into wet, that is something to be aware of. But the colours, I mean, that red is gorgeous. And the same with the lavender, really nice, very easy to make up the greys. What we'll do now, let's do some sunflowers. That's something else that I tried out this week. So with the pencil again, I'm just going to draw in two pots, and we'll do some terracotta pots this time, and we'll put these sunflowers in them. Like I said before, you could do really faint. I mean, I quite often, I've been this week not even bothering with the lines. I've just been going for it with the paintbrush, which I think is a good thing to do. Right, we'll use that for now. And then I'm going to roughly draw in my sunflowers. So these could be like dwarf sunflowers, I guess. So we need two circles. They always face the same way, don't they? And then we want the face towards the sun, that's why they're called sunflowers. And then some random petals that are coming out. These are drawn, well, these are really, really big actually. I'm not doing a cracking job here. These aren't Russian giants, that's for sure. I think these are definitely dwarfs. So we'll try and make something look sort of semi-real. Yeah, I've got to do the same on this one, of course. And then again, we'll do another one like this. So I'm really whacking these down. We'll have this one going behind this one, I think. Okay, and yeah, we're gonna have, they do stand really tall and straight, don't they? And there's me putting them in at an angle. Let's correct that. We've got to have them looking semi. Oh, how do we do that? Yeah, they can go like this. Right, and then it will have some big leaf, because they always have these big leaves. And we'll do sort of a leaf behind. And then we'll do some leaves coming out of this one. That would be going further up. That one can go from there. What have I done there? I don't know. It's turning the camera on. It just turns me to an idiot. Not that I'm not an idiot usually. Right, they'll do for now. So let's see how we get on. Hold on a minute. I've got a medium size. I seem to have my big brush, which is a 6. There should be a 4 lurking about here somewhere. No, it doesn't seem to be. There it is. I knew it was somewhere. Right, so we've got a size 4 brush here. And let's have a go at painting these pots. So this time we'll use the Paul Rubens first. So I'm going to do the one on the right first, and I'm going to put in the first layer of sunflowers. So we'll use a nice light yellow for that. Some yellow. I'm not even sticking to the lines in here. So we'll add the yellow in first, and then just going to put some extra ones in just behind. And then what we'll do is we'll warm this yellow up slightly with some of the yellow deep, I think it is, and we'll add a little bit of shadow with that. So we'll just add some of the yellow deep, I think it is, permanent yellow middle maybe. Anyway, it's the one next to it. And I'm just going to add, just to create a bit of texture, a bit of bleed, some depth, all that type of thing. We'll add that just next to it. Especially these ones behind. So as I was saying in my last video, you don't have to be a slave to your line work. That's indeed if you're even doing line work. And quite often this week I've just gone straight in with a paintbrush, which is really nice. Yeah, you can alter it. And you can even rub these lines out, you know, some of them will come out, especially if you've used a HB and you've not pressed too hard. They will come out. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we will add a little bit of the orange, I think, as well. I'm going to add a little bit of the orange into some of these wet petals. Now that is quite orange. So what we can do is, I'm just going to soak that up with a semi-dry brush because it is very orange. Now that does work a little bit, that's not too bad. Of course, if you want to dull that orange down, you just have to add the opposite colour in, and the opposite colour would be something like a mauve or a blue, really, a blue. We'll just dull it down a little bit. Now I was working really as wet as I could on the petals, so we have got a bit of a bleed into that, which is really nice. And then just drag some bits out just to add a little bit more interest. Okay, that will do. And in fact, I'm just gonna pop a bit of this into the middle as well. I've got this terracotta sort of colour, which isn't the strongest of colours, I've got to say, but I'm going to get this nice and watery because we'll have more chance of it creating some texture the more watery it is. And you don't want to fill it in and make it look really even because it would just kill your watercolour. You want to leave a few little gaps, I think that can look good. You want to encourage texture, so add water in, which is a thing they tell you not to do. If you get bits like that, just pick them up and wipe your brush. And then you can drag bits down, you can add a bit more in. I'm trying to get as much interest as I can into it, just while it's wet. And then what we'll do is, while we're adding those bits in, we're going to add in some shadow colour, and yeah, just need to, so while it's wet, and then we're going to pop the shadow in as well. Have it coming over here a bit more this time. I'm just going to encourage it to bleed as much as it can into here. Okay, I think that will do. That's okay. We'll add some round shapes because it might be reflecting the sunflowers after all. There, yeah. What we're going to do next is add in the greenery. So we're going to add in the stalk. Yeah, this olive green will work wonderfully for that. And we'll put this in. Okay. Not too thick, remember. And then we're going to put in these leaves. Now, I shouldn't be doing that. You could just use 2 strokes of the brush like so, and that will give you a nice leaf shape. Now this one is coming from, it's sort of, for some reason it's coming from behind. There we go. And I'm just going to take out a little bit in the middle. And then we'll put in another leaf. I think it just feels a bit uneven, so we'll pop in a leaf here that we can see from the side. There we go, that's quite nice. And again, I'm just going to take out a little bit from the middle. Right, now we're just going to deepen up the green a little bit, perhaps with a slightly darker green. So into that I'm just going to add a little bit of indigo this time, just while it's wet. Just adds a little bit more depth into there, and just add a little bit along this bit here. Yeah, that'll do. Maybe on the other side. So we'll have like a burnt sienna, which is this orangey colour, but we need to get it quite thick. I'm just going to tap a little bit onto the kitchen towel because that should help, and then we will add, we're just going to put in some little speckles, and that should sort of signify that bit of detail around there. And then again, I'm just going to drag a little bit out, and that should look like a little bit of shadow. And we'll do the same on the other side. So again, just a few dots, just drag a little bit out. And then finally, we just need to add in a bit of darker colour, I think, around it. And that needs to be something like a burnt umber. If it's not dark enough, then just add a bit French ultramarine, just add some French ultramarine into it. And then we just need around the edges, and then right in the middle, it's usually a little bit darker from memory, from sunflowers, and then you have a little bit usually around the outside too. Now I've seen a few people walking along this week with big bunches of sunflowers, and they look amazing. So it must be the time of year when all the fields, especially in places like France, are just full of them. They do look wonderful, and they make a great cut flower. We won't go mad, just gonna encourage that just to bleed a little bit, just adding some water on my brush into it. And then I think, well actually we're going to add a background to this one, just using the sap green or something like, and we'll just, in fact, why am I using the little brush? I should be using the big brush. I'm all over the place today. Yeah, we'll use this one. And can always, it would just help, I think, bring out those shape of these leaves a little bit. Of course, I mean, this makes it look like there's some big bush or a tree behind it. You could paint a wall behind it and use more of a grey or a terracotta-y, like a bricky colour. But yeah, we're going to make out that there's like some type of bush here. And obviously you can spend a lot longer on yours. Now I don't mind it bleeding a little bit into this to make some areas just stand out a little bit more. Oops, maybe that's a bit too much. Let's use another type of green. And there you have very quick little sunflower sketch. In fact, we're gonna make that look like some type of, I think, wall or something going on there in the garden. It's your world, remember, so you can do what you want with it. Okay, and just because I am finicky, I am just gonna add in a bit of contrast, because yeah, adding a bit of contrast will really elevate your pictures, honestly. Possibly not doing the best of examples here. Okay, I think we'll call it a day on that one. So I'm watering down the lemon yellow here because we want a fairly watery consistency for our leaves. I'm just going straight over all of the pencil work, and I'm adding in a little bit more behind it. And I really am just putting it down very haphazardly, and in fact I'm going to go over the whole thing there. We'll do the same with the other side, and I'm working fast because I want it to stay as wet as possible, as wet as it can do. I've got some more egg yolky colour is the best way of describing it, but I've got a little bit too much perhaps on my brush, so I've just dried it off, just tapped it on a bit of kitchen towel, and I'm just adding that into behind some of the leaves, so it's a bit of shadow, and a little bit of it into the middle bit. And we'll do the same on the other side. And then what we're going to do is add a little bit of orange into that mixture, and again I'm just going to tap a little bit onto some kitchen towel, and like we did before, is just add some, just to make it a little bit more varied. Now that orange is really rich. Now I did find, that was one thing I did notice this week when I was painting with both sets, is the fact that the orange has a lot more pigment in it than the Paul Rubens. Okay, so it's a lot more vibrant is what I'm trying to say. What we'll do next is we'll tackle, I think we'll do the pot next. Can't remember what we did on the other one. So I'm using a really nice, I think it's Tundra Orange, I think it's called. It's just schmink colour, and it really granulates. I'm using that really as the base, and then I'm adding in some more of a burnt sienna colour. I think it's transparent red oxide. And I'm just going to pop that down there. And we'll add a bit more water into that, because I'm just trying to encourage all that granulation and the bleeds that you get to give all the textures. I'm just wiping the brush off as well, just to give us a bit more texture. And then we will add in some shadow mix. So my shadow mix is a French ultramarine, which is a Daniel Smith, and I think it's the hematite something for my burnt sienna-y colour, and create a bit of texture on our pot. And then we're going to go in straight in and add the shadowy colour. think I'm just going to let that do its thing. I will just darken up this bit here and just encourage it to go into this shadow here. Just want it a little bit darker under there as well. So pop a little bit more into there. Right, what we'll do next is the green on our stalk stems. And then we will do our leaves. Again, trying to just do 2 strokes. Now I'm not swiveling the page around, which I would be doing if I was on my own and I wasn't filming, because it's always best, of course, if you can get the best angle possible to work at. It's trying to get really comfortable so you can just get the colour to work for you. We'll just, whoops, on the ferrule it always gets these little droplets. I'm just trying to take out a little bit of colour from the middle just to create a little bit of shadow effect. There we go, that will do. And then what we will do next is, while that green in the pot is drying and doing its thing, we'll add in the middle bit. Right, transparent red oxide, that's what I need. Yeah, I'm going to add in the seed part. We'll just add in a few little dots. For the seeds, and I'm just going to use some of this as well, just to add in a little bit of veins along some of these petals. Not too much though, you don't want to go too overboard. You want to let people's imaginations do all the filling in of the details. It can be far more effective than adding it yourself. Honestly, if you were listening to something, this would be so relaxing. Okay, and then finally we need to add, we'll add in a burnt umber colour. I am going to use some of this one. I'm going to have to look it up, aren't I? It's HSB, there it is. Hematite Burnt Scarlet Genuine, that's what it's called. It's that one there. That's like my burnt umber colour. And I'm just going to tap my brush because it's quite watery at the, and then we'll add, so right in the middle of these sunflowers, I'm just trying to avoid that little bit of highlight I've left, and then just some round the outside. Okay, that will do, I think. Just add a little bit more to there. I think it's still drying because it's still moving around. That is a noticeable difference between the paints, is these do stay wet for a lot longer. Just for shadows, a little bit of definition and contrast. I mean, that's the word that I was looking for, contrast. Okay. And then what we'll do again as well is we'll add some greenery just to make them pop out, stand out, and we'll swap back to the big brush for this. And I'm going to use 2 different types of green, a lighter green, which will be made up of this green Apatite Genuine with some lemon yellow. And I'm just going to just pop that in. And I'm just trying to, it's like a bit of negative painting really. I'm going to go around the petals. Of course, because I've been painting around this side, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But you can see, can't you? Hopefully you can see that if you didn't use pencil, then using the paint, you can, it's drawing with paint as well. Oh, that does look lovely down there. That green is wonderful. And it really is a lovely green, this. So lovely, in fact, that I sort of don't want to change it. So it's a good convenience colour. Because I've got into the habit over the years, I always mix my greens. I've never really used a convenience green as such. So what I'm going to do is something similar to what I did on the other side, and we will add some darker areas. So we'll add in a bit of the French ultramarine. Just going to put it in round here. Just to create a different bit of foliage around there. And then I think we'll do a little bit around these leaves here. And then I'm going to add in like a reddy green, let's say. Take a bit of the green from one side of my palette, add it to here, and then add a little bit of the burnt sienna. I think we'll add in like a brick wall, something behind it. But I am going to add mix it with some green so it's more like the one on the other side, otherwise they will look like different paintings. So it could be a bit of a wall behind it, a mossy wall, an old wall. It's your world, like I said on the other one. You can do what you want with it. A bit of that and a bit of the French ultramarine, a little bit denser, just to make those pop out, I think. I'm not going to go on and on with it. I think we'll call it a day there. But you've got 2 sunflower paintings. The really expensive paints on this side, cheaper ones on that. And I've got to say, these aren't bad at all, are they? I mean, they say they're artist quality, so they are nice, they are good to work with. I find them, there are 4 things I would say that stand out to me. I'm just going to show you some of the other things again that I did with them. They're not as pigmented, I would say. I could see quite a clear difference between, well, noticeably, if you look at these 2 pots. This one is sort of granulated more. This one's a lot flatter. That's the only way I can put it, really. The colours are a bit more, not insipid, but I don't think they're as pigmented. I think that's the main thing. The better quality paints have more pigment in them, and these ones aren't so pigmented, so probably won't last as long as a really good quality coloured paint. And then by no means, I'm trying not to be too negative about them, because I think they're a great set to start with, and the beauty of them is they are loose as well, so you can start practicing and you can do a whole manner of things with them, and then just replace the odd 1 or 2 maybe for a better quality perhaps. But it's a really lovely set, and to say, I mean, on Amazon this was £50, so you get the tin and 24 colours, whereas I mean, I dread to think how much this tin costs. Yeah, we won't go into that. So I don't know about the light fastness. I've no information. I suppose if I looked into it, I could probably find out a bit more, but I certainly wouldn't be selling anything with them, because I don't know. With the Winsor and Newton and your Daniel Smith and your Schmink, it's a lot more open about the light fastness. So I've got to be honest. It's what this channel is about. I'm not telling you to go out and buy these. I just wanted to show you what the difference is. I painted this in the week with them. I thought that worked really well. It's from a basket that's hanging on our wall outside. Yeah, I think they're lovely. I think they're really good, and well, it's up to you, isn't it? But thank you, Paul Rubens, for your lovely floral